Welcome to Perception versus Reality Sports and Culture, where we cover sports from a different angle and bring you topics most podcasts and radio shows will not cover. I'm your host, Rodney870, and welcome my co-hosts, Neely, Mr. Sports IQ, Lemuel, aka Limwood, and Stanley, known on Instagram as Third World 870. Please enjoy this PvR clip and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Welcome to another edition of PvR Sports and Culture episode. Today we have Lemuel Smith and Neely Vance with us. We're going to be covering a few topics. The first topic we're going to cover will be Damian Lillard. He made the comment that he wouldn't be like other NBA stars who sold themselves out to win a ring by teaming up with other superstars and other organizations. He's worked pretty hard with the team that he's with, and he want to see it through. And with that being said, I want to play a clip of Damian Lillard, and then we'll discuss if we agree or disagree.
7 years of fighting, trying to get over the hump. You know, even though it's hard, I don't want to take my position for granted. Obviously, we all play to win a championship. I want to win a championship. I compete to win a championship. When my career is over, I'm going to know the relationships that I'm going to have. I'm going to know the people who knew I was solid with them. I took people's situations and their families and what could be into consideration before I just made a decision based off, all right, this is what would be best for me. I do want to win a championship, but it's other stuff that means more to me.
Gotcha. I understand.
It's almost like I'm not willing to sell myself out for that.
So you guys heard what he said. I found it quite interesting. I'll give my point first. I agree and I don't agree with what he's saying. I agree in a way because I feel like if you're on a team with all-star players and you have a shot at winning, then you should try to give that team a chance as long as you can before deciding to leave. If you're on a team like, I give you an example like LeBron. LeBron was on the Cleveland Cavaliers team. True enough, they had won 60 games back to back, but that was when LeBron was at his apex. He was able to dominate both ends of the floor at that time. He was young. He was able to control games from an athletic standpoint as well as just a physical standpoint, wearing teams down in the Eastern Conference. So I feel like when you looked at his team, his best player was Mo Williams. Mo Williams was a 6'1" guard who was 30 plus years old. Big Z was in his mid to late 30s, and Delonte West and Boobie Gibson were like role players that were only starting on the Cavaliers team, probably couldn't start on another team in the league. So when he decided to pack up and go to Miami, I understood it because of the fact that Miami was a team that wasn't winning. They had been to the finals 5 years before and won, but for 5 years they had missed the playoff twice and made it to the playoffs 3 years, where they lost in the first round to the Bulls, to the Celtics, and I'm thinking it was either the Atlanta Hawks or the Detroit Pistons that beat them in the first round 1 year. So you had Dwayne Wade. Then you had Chris Bosh, who's with the Toronto Raptors, who had been there for 7 years, had only made one playoff, and in that playoff series he was swept, so he never won a playoff game. So the teams that were beating them were teams like Boston, who had 4 superstars, 4 all-stars, and then a nice little bench. And you also had Orlando, who had Dwight Howard, Turkoglu, and Pietrus, and some of those guys who were 6'8", 6'9" shooters who can play, who was defensive and who were 6'8", 6'9" guys. And then you had the Detroit Pistons, who were getting older, but they were still relevant at that point in time. And so you had these teams who were defeating these 3 stars, and they decided to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to go join those teams. We're going to go and form our own team and try to build something. So in essence, yeah, you had together, but they were actually trying to build a team instead of just joining. And what KD did was a ready-made team, where KD, he was there with a superstar, well, a top 5 or top 6 player at the time in Oklahoma, where they were making it to deep in the playoffs every year. They were just losing because either one of those guys would be hurt, or the year they was up 3-1, they just blew it. And so for him to leave and not go build his own team to defeat Golden State, but to actually Golden State, and a team that had won 73 games and was 1 minute away from back-to-back championships. Had won 67 games the year before. And they pretty much, if Cleveland hadn't gone on an unbelievable run, this team would have won back-to-back championships and been considered the greatest team in history without KD. And he joined that team. So I get what Damian Lillard is saying. He's saying that he wouldn't sell himself out in that fashion, whether it's LeBron or whether it's KD. So with that said, I'll go to you, Lynn. What do you think about this? Do you think it was fair or foul what he said?
Oh, I think it's a gift and a curse. Man, my thing is I think that the players, I think the player empowerment that has come from it is a good thing. But I'm a very big on competing, actually. I like the players to go out and compete and not necessarily have to get players around them or handpick and just play. Like, when Jordan, I hate to bring Jordan up, but when Jordan was with the Bulls, they drafted Pippen. He had to wait for Pippen to develop, and it wasn't like overnight either. It took like 3-4 years for Pippen to even get, he wasn't even at all-star level, but just a sizable role player to be able for them to compete against other teams, and he was patient with that. My biggest thing is that the players, they feel like if they have to get a championship, and I don't think that's the case. If Charles Barkley went to the Bulls, Charles Barkley wouldn't have been a better player. He would have won a ring, but he still would have been the same player. Kevin Durant best years was with OKC. He won MVP with OKC. His best year was there. So because he was Golden State, because his 3 rings does not elevate him. I mean, he won 3 rings because he went to Golden State. If LeBron had the free agent market and Golden State was available and he went to Golden State, that wouldn't enhance his legacy. He's still the same player. So I think what we have to do is we're being too hard on these players for getting rings. And the rings doesn't tell the story about you as a player. It's the team around you. And that's what we have done. We have said, Charles Barkley didn't win a ring. Okay. Charles Barkley could have easily went to the Bulls and won a ring. It wouldn't have changed the player he is. He's still Charles Barkley. Karl Malone did the same thing earlier. In his prime, he could have went to another team. But, and so I get what Lillard is saying, but I think we have created to where players feel like they have to get a ring or they have to go to another team in order to compete. So that's my thing on it.
Yeah, for me, man, I kind of feel the same way. I agree with a lot of Lim's sentiments. I mean, and yours too, Rodney. Like, I feel like for me, it seems like the push for the players needing rings kind of came with the LeBron greatness argument to me, honestly, not to, always bring LeBron into each conversation, but it seems like, once we were trying to, once you saw the overall skill level of LeBron and the type of stats and numbers he was putting up, then, his next hurdle was how many rings can he get? Will he get enough rings? And then rings, of course, are a team accomplishment. And like you said, right, he didn't have the team to win a ring, regardless of how great LeBron was going to be. More than likely, had he stayed with that Cleveland team, and Cleveland wasn't appealing. No free agents were wanting to run there by themselves, and Cleveland wasn't able to draw him any talent. So, everybody looks at it like the LeBron trickle-down thing, and, LeBron started it, and then everybody else started to create super teams. But I even look back at, the Celtics team, that had Paul Pierce and KG, Rondo, all of them. Like Liam mentioned, you want to see the competition, but then again, like what's competition, and then what's just going to be a flat out beatdown more times than not. Like we couldn't really expect LeBron to go beat 2 Hall of Fame players, two of the probably top 50 all time greats, and KG and Paul Pierce, with somebody that may sneak into the Hall of Fame on the back end and Rondo. And expect LeBron to go beat those guys with Mo Williams. And if his team wasn't able to get him the talent to beat them, the measuring stick that LeBron was on, he had to win some rings. So, like when Damian Lillard said that, honestly, what it kind of reminds me of and what it made me think about, not like Lillard, was the line from Troy when Achilles was like, and that's why nobody will remember your name. Like, I don't really care about these rings, but, where are we really expecting Damian Lillard to fall in the all-time greats? Like, for him, it doesn't really matter. Like, he can come out and say something like that. John Wall can say he don't care about rings. I mean, we can go back as far as probably Russell Westbrook and say that Russ can say, I don't really care about rings. I'm playing for the love of the game, and he kind of get away with it. But when you go to KD and even Steph at this point, I think Steph going to need to try to branch out and get his own ring to catapult himself into the top 10 and things like that, because after a while, these players can't be compared apples to apples because, the different positions and styles that they play. So we start to go statistics, and then you go kind of accomplishments, rings, MVPs, and things of that nature. So, to me, the argument is only there for the upper echelon of players, and for the most part, you feel like the greats in the NBA could win a ring damn near by themselves. Like in the NFL, it's a full team sport, so a lot of great players may not have won rings. In the NBA, for the most part, most of the players that you think of is great. When you name off your top 10, I'm pretty sure everybody in your top 10 probably got a ring or two.
Exactly. And with you guys, go ahead, Lynn. Go ahead.
Just to add on, I do think though there are, with the case with everybody, and we had brought LeBron up in that original Cleveland team. I think he could have won with that team because he lost to Orlando. Orlando's second best player was Hedo Turkoglu.
Yeah.
I remember that series. That series, right. That's a winnable series.
But Liam, with those
matchups, they had the super Dwight Howard. That wasn't LeBron's matchup. That's what made it tough.
Better. Yeah, but LeBron was better than Dwight Howard. But then too, we also bring up the Celtics. The Celtics wasn't like KG on steroids or Paul Pierce did his thing, but Ray Allen was more of a spot up shooter. They had roles. It wasn't like this Golden State where all of them are just like.
Right. I agree. This Golden State team
they took it to another level.
A super team. Yeah. A super team like we've never seen before. But what I would say is this.
And then to make a good point, I'm gonna just add this. To make a good point, it wasn't this talk until it started being LeBron. Because all them dudes with the Celtics back in the day that won 10 rings, 9 rings, nobody said nothing about that to Jordan when he was winning his. But
But yeah, Liam, to go out to kind of push back on what you said with the team with Orlando. If Cleveland, and you're right, if Cleveland would have played anyone else in the East that year, they would have been sitting in the finals where we would have finally got our Kobe versus LeBron matchup, where Kobe would have been at the end of his prime and LeBron would have been at the beginning of his. And that would have been the dream matchup that everybody wanted to see. But they faced the wrong team in Orlando. Orlando had 6'9", Turkoglu 6'10", Petrus 6'9". They had Rashad Lewis. He was
Larry Hughes. Mo Williams.
But Larry Hughes wasn't with them at that time. He wasn't with them at that time. At that time, it was Mo Williams. It was Mo Williams, 6'1", Delonte West, 6'3", 6'4".
Okay.
Yeah,
small guy.
It was a matchup issue because if you think about it, that series went 6 games and they lost 2 of the games by less than 5 points that they lost, and it was one of those series where. Because LeBron averaged 38 in that series, 38 and 20, 38 and 18.
And he had to hit a shot at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So with that team, I just think it was a terrible matchup for them. It was almost like the matchup when Miami played San Antonio, and San Antonio had changed their offense to passing themselves open, where they were just kicking the ball around and passing themselves open, where Miami defense was built on great man-on-man defense. Like Miami had D-Wade was a good man-on-man defender. Bosh was a good man-on-man defender. LeBron was a great man-on-man defender. So Miami thing was to play man-on-man defending, and Pop knew that. So that whole year, Pop practiced on pass yourself open, because he knew Miami was not a good rotating team. They could not rotate good.
Right.
Ate Miami alive in that series. If they had played anybody else in that series in the West, they would have beat them, except San Antonio. And so with that being said, I think that what Damian Lillard, and I ask you this, Liam, with what he was saying, do you feel like LeBron and KD sold their souls or sold themselves out for a ring? With them selling themselves out for a ring, if you agree with that, do you feel like it was due to public pressure and due to being compared to Jordan and saying Jordan got 6, so you got to win rings to be the man?
Well, I wouldn't say sold themselves out. LeBron case, and people disagree with this. LeBron case is just different than Kevin Durant's case. He was in Cleveland for one. I mean, I don't know if Cleveland. It's Cleveland to
Yeah, I've
Miami.
been there
It's
once.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's one. And then two, he's been in Cleveland his whole life, so it was a time to get out. And also too, he was able to create something that was bigger. He was thinking of it as far as like business and his brand. And KD probably did too, but KD's was definitely the most uncompetitive decision to go to that team. So and Neely made a good point. Damian Lillard don't have to worry about this.
Exactly.
I mean,
He's not
ain't nobody
pressure,
gonna be checking for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Ain't nobody checking for him. So.
And that's the difference. Like you said, if you ask LeBron and KD, who were considered the best players in the league without a ring, it's different pressure. With that said, Neely, do you think that Damian Lillard was off base and the media is just taking the media hates LeBron and KD so much that they understand what you said, Neely, that Lillard is not in that position because he doesn't have that pressure. Do you think the media kind of played this and took it and ran with it to try to make players like KD and LeBron look bad?
Yeah, I think they'll the media kind of sticks with that narrative anyway, though. Like Liam, mentioned, a lot of people do want the competition. Like, I want to think that it's 8 or 9 or 10 teams that could potentially win it. So I think regardless of Dame, and Dame probably just feels the pressure of, because he feels like he's one of the best players in the league. And Dame feels like, in a series straight up, me and Steph, I could possibly beat Steph in a 7-game series, but I can't beat all of them. So I think he just feels like, he wants to talk down on it because he doesn't have the mentality, or I don't know if ain't nobody really checking for him or what, but he don't have the mentality necessarily to jump on the super team. So now, I can't win a ring, so rings ain't that important to me. It's kind of that type of thing, to me, coming from Dame. I can't say that I feel like he was out of bounds because I feel like it was kind of an honest statement from him. And, you can always kind of hang on KD and LeBron to get the attention out there, to get people to talk. He didn't mention Boogie jumping behind KD on the Golden State team basically to get a ring real quick this year. He mentioned KD and LeBron because those names are headlines.
Exactly. Now, Liam, one more question on this. Do you think the fact that CJ McCollum was doing a podcast with KD, and KD pretty much totally in a pompous way dismissed the Portland Trailblazers by saying that, hey man, y'all don't worry about that. You guys are never going to be in that position to win a ring. That's a little bit above your head. Leave that type of stuff alone, which I found very disrespectful because you weren't talking that shit when you were with Oklahoma getting your ass beat every year, but now you're with Golden State and you feel the need to be that disrespectful to one of your peers. Do you think that has something to do with Damian Lillard taking that shot towards KD?
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. With the players, man, a lot of these players, especially them point guards, they really think Steph Curry is barbecue chicken. If you ever watch him go against another point guard, they make sure they get the matchup on him, and as soon as they do, they isolate and they go to work on. So they feel like this Golden State team isn't, they feel like they're beatable, but they saying like, okay, y'all stacking all these players, that's why y'all can do that. But y'all really ain't tight as you think you are. So I think they kind of, they feel like they just want a fair and equal shot to go at them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's where it's at.
Neely, your last thoughts on this before we move on to the next topic.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it, man. Like you said, like Liam just mentioned, I think that people feel like that the Golden State would have been somewhat vulnerable, and now it's going to take a miracle, really to beat that team, for over a 7-game series, to beat them 4 games. And like you mentioned, Rodney, like, the overall, the team and the way that it's built and everything is constructed, it's almost impossible to beat. So, Dame, I feel like should fall back, to, as far as just mentioning everybody. But I think that, again, that's his honest opinion. He feels like, everybody's kind of joining this team to chase a ring, and it shouldn't be that important. It should be about the competitive nature of the sport.
Absolutely. Great finish. Great finish. All right. Moving on to our next topic. I want to discuss Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown was officially traded this morning from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Oakland Raiders. And if I'm not mistaken, they traded a third round pick and a fifth round pick, correct?
Fifth round pick, yes.
Yeah.
And Oakland
big,
sent them back a sixth round or something like that, or fourth.
I can't believe that the NFL trade players for such low picks, man. I would just think Antonio Brown is a guaranteed 1 or 2, man. Hell, the Cowboys
if
the
Cowboys,
super team.
hey, if Cowboys do that, they should have sent that second round pick on just so pick. Hey, man, we'll give you a second or third or something.
Yeah,
man,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's crazy. But just to finish the introduction to this topic, so Antonio Brown requested a trade. And the way he requested his trade was he pretty much did it in public. It started the last week of the season. He didn't show up for a couple of practices, didn't play in the game, started missing meetings. He was just pretty much done. They were still fighting for the playoffs, and he really didn't care. And then as the offseason proceeded, he continued to show his dislike for the team and his grievances by going to the media and going to social media and posting things about the team, private things like how Ben Roethlisberger treats some of the players and how he talked to them as if they're children. And then one of the general manager or the owner came out and said, hey, Ben has to be the leader of 52 other kids, which it insinuated that they're dealing with a bunch of kids and not grown men, which actually proves Antonio Brown's point. And when he was looked at as the villain, now he's looked at as somebody who, like, hey, he does have a point. If the owner is saying this, that means he's giving Ben Roethlisberger the freedom to do these type of things. And you can't treat somebody that good, because Antonio Brown, whether people like it or not, has been one of the best receivers we've seen since Randy Moss and T.O. And that's no lie. Even over Julio Jones and even over some of these other guys with his production and the way he can carry a team. I'm going to play a clip here from ABC Sports pretty much talking about the trade and with the Raiders and the Steelers.
Antonio Brown managed to take a situation where he was under contract for 3 more years and parlay that into a new 3-year contract that's going to pay him over $50 million, assuming he's there for all 3 years. Either way, he's guaranteed $30 million plus when he was previously guaranteed nothing. So how did he pull this off? Well, from the Raiders' perspective, before we say they paid too much, consider how these deals typically work. You take into account what you're giving up to the other team to trade for a player and what you are paying the player. And in this case, because the Raiders were able to get Antonio Brown for only a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick, it was easier to justify paying him more money. Now, the more they have to give the Steelers to get Brown, the less they would be willing to give him under the terms of a contract. So, by virtue of the fact that the Steelers were so desperate to move Brown that they were willing to take only a 3 and a 5, that allowed Brown to unlock a new contract that has that guaranteed money that his previous deal did not have. And when you look at his contract, when you compare it to others like Odell Beckham Jr., Sammy Watkins, Antonio Brown, for now, has a better deal than any of them. And he managed to do it without becoming a free agent, without...
So you heard it right there. It's not only the trade and what he got with the trade, it's the fact that he was able to add $30 million in guaranteed money without adding another year to his deal. So he kept the same amount of years on his deal, because normally they'll try to push out the years and add guaranteed money where it say $30 million, but you're only going to get 20 because on the back end, when you're 36 years old, you can get that money. He still only had 3 years left on his deal, and he added $30 million to a deal where he had already got guaranteed money from the Steelers. First question, Liam, who won this trade, the Raiders or the Steelers, by getting rid of this money off their books for the next 3 years? And how did Antonio pull off this $30 million guaranteed heist?
Okay, a couple things. So let's go back to the Steelers and Raiders. So the Steelers have dead money on their books. So it's like in the cap, if you trade a player and it has a salary cap hit, you still have to take that against your salary cap. So the Steelers are still paying. It's like they're paying him $21 million, but they're not paying anybody, but it counts against their cap.
Yeah.
So they lost $20 million against the cap there too as well.
Okay.
So to only get third and fifth back, the Raiders won this deal. And you got to think about what the Raiders did. The Raiders they basically traded Amari Cooper for Antonio Brown. They got a first round pick,
Yep.
and all they had to do was third and the fifth.
Yep.
So they, for John Gruden, and that staff, they did a
If
wonderful
he
job.
get Le'Veon Lamb, and he still got those 3 or 4 first round picks, he gonna look like a genius.
Yeah.
He gonna look like a genius at the end of the draft.
That's a question that they'll have to ask. Do they want to pay a running back that type of money,
Yeah.
and they could draft whatever? But if I'm the Raiders, I'm in Oakland. They got a bunch of cap space. Why? I mean, you're the Raiders. Why not? I just go ahead, pay the money, take the hit, whatever. And if nothing else, you get the buzz selling tickets, and you'll probably get other free agents who want to come there. Second thing is what needs to be talked about is how Antonio Brown is. This is the first time I can remember in a while. He just fleeced the NFL. He has put that is player empowerment. It's the first time I've seen
Darrelle Reeves did. Don't forget about Darrelle Reeves. Darrelle Reeves did it.
Reeves.
Yeah.
Okay. He basically forced, if I'm DeMarcus Lawrence, I know y'all hate this, but if I'm DeMarcus Lawrence, I'm going to my agent, hey, demand a trade right now. Because what's going to happen, just like Khalil Mack did in the way, they basically found suitors that was going to pay him the money that he wanted.
Yep.
Okay? And also, too, once you know that it's a trade that you're willing and that you're wanting a trade, the value kind of decreases. So Antonio Brown, what he did was he fleeced the Steelers in a way to where he went to social media. He did a lot of stuff I didn't like too much, but his method of doing that also decreased what the Steelers could get back. So the Steelers didn't have as many suitors. So they were kind of, their hands were tied. They had to deal him, but they had to deal him to a number of teams. And since the other teams knew that it wasn't a bunch of teams, we can lowball you.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happened in that case. They got lowballed, but that was the best offer that was on the table because teams were not willing. They were scared that Brown wouldn't show up. They scared they wouldn't play. The Bills bowed out. The Bills probably had a better package, but they said that Brown wouldn't come to the table with them. So he kind of controlled where he kind of went in a way.
Yeah.
So Raiders won this trade. It is by far. And the Steelers, I mean, they just have to draft well because they have lost 2 big-time pieces. And you're talking about 36-year-old quarterback trying to win. And they win right now. I love the draft. But they got to win right now. They can't be talking about the field to the draft. So I don't know how that's going to go for them.
And when you look at it, I don't like the way Antonio Brown did it, but I'm happy for him because this guy was able to get paid. Anybody in the NFL that can get paid and can get their money, like Darrelle Reeves, I'm happy for him. Neely, real quick, what do you and Neely? I know you probably have some details you want to share this, but I want to ask you a question. If you're the Steelers and you know Le'Veon is not coming back, do you actually allow Antonio Brown to leave, or do you just bring him back in disgruntled and let him play one more year and then try to get another player? Since you're only getting a third, and a fifth. So do you just bite the bullet and bring him back?
At that point, I think I'm just gonna move on from him, man. Honestly, now I do think I would have definitely tried to leverage it for me to get more back than what I got. Now, if that's just flat out the best offer that they got, period, and they take it, then I think they really just had to take it. But I mean, with the level that he started to take things, I mean, he's going to be, the epitome of a cancer. Like, I don't think him and Big Ben was really going to be able to work together. It was going to slow down probably the progress of Juju. He probably wasn't going to come out there and play at all like Le'Veon had just did it the year before, where he basically said, "I'll forget the money. I'm young enough. I'm still going to sign another deal, and I'm going to get paid." So for the Steelers, at that point, you have to give something back. I mean, I think that's kind of how they ended up looking at it. Now, I do feel like they lost, like you said, like they lost to me big time. If you look at the 3 parties involved in this deal, and Antonio Brown, the Oakland Raiders, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think AB definitely won overall. He controlled exactly his fate, probably ended up where he wanted to go, got his money, got out of the way, all of that. So to me, he won overall. The Raiders, like Liam said, replaced Amari Cooper with Antonio Brown and got a first-round pick by only giving up a third and a fifth. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing they lost at all was just the age of that receiver. But honestly, I don't know if Amari Cooper will ever completely get to Antonio Brown's peak. So, yeah. I mean, and you're getting him right in the middle of his prime. So, to me, the Steelers lost, but they had to.
And like you said, Neely, Antonio Brown is turning 31. but he's the type of receiver where I could see playing till he's 36, 37,
Right.
like Larry Fitzgerald.
Exactly.
He didn't take a lot of big hits like receivers that like Dez that took beating on his body where you knew he was going to be done by 32, 33. I think Antonio Brown could go to 36, 37. But continue with your thought.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, man, I think, again, Antonio Brown won. I mean, we discussed on other topics, I love the player empowerment. So, him, whatever manner he did it in, more power to him. That's not my particular personality type. It's not my flavor. I would have hated him if I wasn't acting like that. But it got him what he needed to get. And however you had to get your money, man, you had to lay down and throw a tantrum, do whatever you had to do. I love the fact that player was able to get his money. And it could be ultimately a big shift coming along in the NFL, man. It's kind of the changes we saw coming with the NBA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me real quick. Moving over to X's and O's. How do you see this playing out with Derek Carr and Antonio Brown? Because I think if he didn't like Ben could throw that thing. Ben developed into a good quarterback. I can't see Derek Carr getting on the ball like that because he couldn't even get Amari Cooper the ball like that. How do you think it's going to play out? Do you think it's going to be a good season, mediocre, average season, or a great season?
Well, I mean, when you look at the Oakland Raiders, I don't think Derek Carr was an issue. John Gruden hadn't coached in 10 years and came back with that dink-dunk West Coast offense, and Derek Carr has a big arm. He's a vertical guy, and it took them a while to get on the page. It's going to help. It's going to pay big dividends for them. But this is to note. We always talk about big play receivers, and I'm big on them. But Antonio Brown won 3 playoff games with the Steelers. The whole time he was there, they won 3 playoff games.
That's true.
So football is chemistry and team. It's really going to be incumbent. Now, Derek Carr and Antonio Brown, they on Instagram a lot. And Antonio Brown, even though he's 31, he has like a little young spirit.
Yeah.
So, Derek Carr is like on his level. They cool guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like, I'm not sure Antonio Brown will work with like a Peyton Manning type personality either. So I think that will fit. The key is going to be John Gruden more than anybody. He ain't on the hot seat because they paid him a meal, but he on the clock because he got weapons now. And his offense didn't really come with it last year. He was just that old, outdated offense. So we have to see what he comes up with and see if he can get their offense going.
Yeah. Nearly, they have Antonio Brown. They still have Derek Carr. What do you do in the draft? And what do you do in free agency to make sure that this team is a playoff team competing for a Super Bowl next year? What do you think they need to do?
Man, on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, of course you got to protect their quarterback. I mean, at the end of the day, so I'm addressing the line. Like, I hadn't researched the Raiders to be able to tell you what key weaknesses they got along in the line, but it seems like Derek Carr takes a lot of hits as far as I can remember. So I'm repairing the line up front. What'd you say, Lynn?
They had one of the best offensive lines in the league in 2016. Similarly, he got hurt a lot, and they just traded him to the Jets.
Okay,
so they got the best in the game. Right guard is solid. So, but they do need some replacement on that line. So, that was a good way to say.
As long as I got my line right, I'm looking for a workhorse type running back. And then kind of a tight end that I can get, the smart of the middle that I can get the ball off kind of quick to. I'm trying to make Derek Carr kind of think as little as possible. Derek Carr was one of the quarterbacks that I thought had a lot of talent. And he started to show it a couple of years ago, and he was damn near MVP. I'm not sure why he took such a big dive last year. But I think Antonio Brown coming in, some of the surest hands in the league, still arguably the best receiver in the NFL. I mean, as long as they can make it work, I think it'll be cool. Like Liam said, I think they'll have a little more chemistry than a Big Ben who's trying to demand that you do this a certain way. I think Derek Carr have a little more respect for an Antonio Brown caliber player, so he'll treat him a little bit different. A lot of wide receivers, you got to stroke their ego, to a certain extent. You got to make them feel a certain way when you're playing with them. I mean, and I think Derek Carr is more willing to do that than Big Ben would have been.
Okay, so Liam, real quick, and we'll move on to the next topic. With what Neely said, if you're sitting in the first round, your first pick in the first round, I don't know if it's 2, 3, or 4, whatever it is. If Kyler Murray does not get drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, do you take him if you're the Raiders and pretty much give Derek Carr 1 year, well, 8 more games, the way Baltimore did Flacco? Do you pass up on Kyler Murray?
No. I feel trades for people to trade up so I can trade down. I mean, I'm gonna go with Derek because Derek Carr has proven that he can play. There's no doubt about it. And then you got to think about this. John Gruden is not a good match for Kyler Murray because John Gruden, if you ever see his playbook or his play calls or his language in his play call, he has a very complicated pro style system. And Kyler Murray has come from an easy spread, easy read system. So it wouldn't be a great fit for Kyler. I wouldn't want to put him in that situation because I won't think he would fit. And I honestly don't know if Gruden right now can fit any of these new quarterbacks because it showed last year it didn't look like he knew what the hell he was doing. So we'll have to see on that. But I wouldn't want Kyler Murray in that situation myself.
Okay, perfect. That's a good answer. And with that said, I think everybody agreed that Antonio Brown getting his money was a good thing. I think the way he went about doing it, I think, Liam, it was distasteful for you. It was a little distasteful for me. Nearly, you really didn't care because you're about player empowerment. Just as we are, we just want to do it a different way. You like, hey, do whatever it takes because the NFL has been screwing players over for the longest.
Oh, yeah, I'm with neither.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I kind of misunderstood you there. And then, say that. Go ahead, Liam. Say what you was going to say.
No, I was just saying I would neatly on that. I don't care how you do it. I don't care how you do it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he could have did it a different way because I don't like the social media deal when you call people. I don't even like when LeBron do it. Every year when LeBron do that shit, it just kind of irritates me because I'm like, man, you could pull players aside and kind of do it. So that was my take on it. But Neely feels like for them to be a Super Bowl contender next year, they need to shore up the line. Antonio Brown and Derek Carr can get off. Grab you a tight end that can kind of open up the middle of the field. And then the defense, I think, is tough enough. They got 4 first-round picks. They got 3 or 4 first-round picks. They should be able to do something to shore up the defense. So we agree there. Liam, you don't think they should take Kyler Murray in the first round if he's sitting there? I do, because I just feel like he's going to be a special player, and Derek Carr is not going to be a special player. I think Derek Carr is like a good quarterback, like Case Keenum or somebody, but I think Kyler Murray is a special guy. And if you put him in your offense, he's the type of player where you say, okay, I got to change who I am to make this work for him. Kind of like a Michael Vick.
I get you, but John Gruden ain't changed. You saw it with Derek Carr. He didn't change to fit his personnel. He ain't changing. He doesn't. So that's why I say I wouldn't like that.
You would do, I mean, but I don't mind the idea of trading down or pick up more, get more picks because like in the NFL, like you just said, chemistry in the team will win over individual players. And I asked the Cowboys to do that several years, but they drafted so good that I couldn't really complain about it because you got Zeke, you got Jones, you got those guys, so there's no need to really trade down. So with that said, I think we covered that topic pretty good. I think we agree that Antonio Brown and the Oakland Raiders won that trade. Now the last topic of the day, and I'm gonna go through this one, a quick topic. I want to talk about the combine because a lot went on during the combine, and talk about possibilities in NFL draft. So during the NFL combine last week, we had some winners and we had some losers. Some of the winners were DK Metcalf, receiver from Ole Miss. Man, this guy measured in at 6'3" and like 3/4, 228 pounds, and ran a 4.40 if I'm not mistaken. He ran a 4.5 shuttle. He ran a
4.33, I think.
Yeah, 4.33. That's right, 4.33, 40.5 inch vertical. The guy was just amazing. Yeah, you're right, Neely. He ran a 4.33. And then we had Montez Sweat, or Sweet, whatever his name is, Sweat, I think it is. Defensive end, Mississippi State, 6'6", 260 pounds. Ran a 4.41 the fastest since 2003 by a defensive end. At his size, his short shuttle was a 4.29. Man, this guy looked like he's going to be a keeper from somebody, possibly even a Javion Clowney type player. You had Kyler Murray, who really didn't work out. The big deal was his height. Everybody thought he was going to measure in at 5'8.5". He actually measured in at 5'10" and 3/8 or something like that. 5'10" and 1/8 or 5'10" and 3/8. But that 5'10" was big because Russell Wilson is 5'10", and then Drew Brees was actually like 5'8.25". So, that shows you that he's tall enough to actually play in the NFL. He didn't work out. He didn't run a 40 or anything, but he did that. Then you have Rashawn Gary, defensive end from Michigan, 6'4", 277 pounds. Guy ran a 4.58 40, 38 inch vertical. Amazing athlete to be a defensive end. Then you had Devin White, linebacker from LSU. Clocked a 4.4 240, 39 and a half inch vertical. Really showed out, and I think put itself within the top 2 rounds. You had some sleepers also. Devin Bush, linebacker, Michigan. I remember watching this guy play. He's not real big, but you wondered, like, how would he measure out? How would he perform? 5'11", 234. So although he's short, he's a thick guy, 234, so he could take on those hits. He had a 40.5 inch vertical, which shows that he's somewhat of an athlete. And then he ran a 4.4 340. So what he doesn't have in size in the 6'3", 6'4 frame, he can make up in speed. And then we had Justice Hill, Oklahoma State running back. The guy pretty much clocked a 4.4 40. Had a 40-inch vertical, so it kind of showed his athletic ability. Now, we did have some losers in this. One of the biggest losers was Holyfield, Evander Holyfield's son at Georgia. This guy ran a 4.78, and actually on his second run, he ran a 4.81. So it's slow in molasses, as we say in the South. Had a 40-inch vertical, and I think he still will get drafted. I think he still will be a running back, because when you can play the game, you can play the game. And when I watch him play, he's one of those guys who he could be a backup running back somewhere in the league, and I think he'll have a 6-7 year career, no doubt. You had LaJordan Humphrey, receiver out of Texas. He was a big guy, 6'4", 210. Everybody was looking for him to run at least a 4.55 or no less than a 4.6. He ended up running a 4.75 40, so that kind of hurt him. And then you had Jalen Jelks, defensive end out of Oregon, who's a 3-4, who could possibly be a 3-4 linebacker, and everybody was looking for him to show that he has speed so he could play that outside 3-4 linebacker position, and he clocked in at a 4.92 and a 4.59 shuttle in only 19 reps. So not only is he slow, he's not that strong, so that kind of shows that he's not that workout warrior needed to be a big linebacker in the NFL. With that said, I'm going to go to you first, Neely. Let's go back to Kyler Murray, because some things came out about him after this combine. Teams, all you heard was praise after he measured up. And he's supposed to run a 40 and measure again and do the things at his pro day this coming up week. But some things are said about him not really being great on the whiteboard, him not really, coming off as a leader, not being as approachable to players and things of that nature, which came off as a negative for some teams. Do you think this was NFL teams trying to push Arizona away from him so he can fall to them and those teams draft him, or do you think this is something that's realistic, and would you take him with the first pick overall if he was Arizona, Neely?
I do feel like I feel like the information was fabricated though, because I feel like the only real knocks that were on Kyler would have been his measurables. And so since he somewhat basically checked those boxes, he didn't measure out bad as some teams were thinking, then they missed their opportunity for him to kind of fall to him at some sweet spot. So you kind of had to come out with something to get him to fall down to you, and that's kind of his tape and all that is going to show everything. You see he has the arm and all of that. So once his measurables were okay, you weren't going to get him for the most part. So if you want him, you had to, and his character doesn't really seem like it's been in question as far as any off-the-field issues. That's the one thing I feel like you can kind of say and nobody can really prove or justify. So that's the way you can kind of get him to drop. Now, personally, though, I don't like the shorter quarterbacks all that much. With the size that the NFL seems like it's starting to go to, the speed and then the size of some of these huge guys out there. If my team is up there, I'm more than likely not taking Kyler number one. I probably wouldn't take him in the top 10 unless my team really needed a quarterback and he really fit our system, or I had a great line and some great pieces around to make him look as good as I needed him to look. He just, I don't know, man. It's something about the smaller quarterbacks that, every now and then you got your Russell Wilsons, who I really believed in when he was coming out, even your Drew Breeses. But, those guys are few and far between, and some of them don't really last all of that long. So I still kind of hold on, the Baker Mayfields and the Kyler Murrays of the world until I see the game completely evolve into that.
Yeah.
But with some of the sizes that's just out there on the field, like just kind of, it's too many. It's too angle-based to me starting out as a quarterback at that point. Now, Pat Mahomes showed that he can do it, but, you got to create some different throwing lanes being that size or constantly trying to get outside of the pocket. So, I would kind of steer away from Kyler, early on if it was just my organization, though.
Okay. Liam, what about you? Would you take him first?
I would not take him first. Mahomes
you guys
6'3".
tripping, man.
Right.
You guys hating on Kyler, man. For real. Go ahead, Liam. Go ahead, man. I ain't gonna jump in. Man.
Yeah, I know Mahomes tall. I just know he got those weird arm angles. He can throw it all the time.
Yeah, he can throw it. Yeah. My thing is this, right? These are a couple reasons. Number one, let's compare him to Baker Mayfield, okay? If Baker Mayfield came from the same system, these are the things that you have to look at. And I don't like Baker Mayfield. But Baker Mayfield was a walk-on. He worked every bit, every snap, every film session. He had a chip on his shoulder to work. Nothing was given. He had to go out and beat somebody. Kyler Murray transferred from Texas A&M and was as a freshman. It was probably going to be given a job, but didn't really work for it. Went to Oklahoma, system already made. Okay, nobody plays defense in the Big 12, so everything was easy. The two teams that had a defense that he played, the Texas the first time he struggled, Alabama he struggled, and he just to me he comes from his dad. He comes from money. It's a different perspective of how you looking at it from a Baker Mayfield to a Kyler Murray, because Baker Mayfield he's gonna work. He's gonna do everything he needs to make sure that he pushes himself. I don't know if Kyler Murray has that. I think the system at Oklahoma was very easy for him. If you watch their games, the guys are wide open, like wide open. So it's a different ball game in the NFL. And I know people will say, well, Baker could do it, but Baker had a different chip, different attitude, different work ethic. And not saying Kyler Murray doesn't have any work ethic, but just his upbringing, his style, everything came easy. I mean, this guy turned down $10 million for baseball. So he just, it's a different feeling.
Yeah.
So now let's go to the football X's and O's. Like I said, the two teams that had some type of physical defense with some speed, Texas and Alabama, gave them fits. And then
in the first half of both of those games, but once he figured out, he had a big second half against Texas, he had a big second half against Alabama.
Yeah, I would give it. I think Alabama kind of backed off, but I give you that. But
you can't say that with Alabama too, Liam. You could say they kind of eased up, towards the fourth quarter. Yeah.
But and also you got to think about this too. He has to have a specialized. Russell Wilson played in a pro style at Wisconsin. He played under the center. He did, he did a West Coast offense.
Yeah.
So if you draft Kyler Murray, you have to change everything you do on offense. He can't play. So you can't draft him.
Just like with Lamar Jackson, they went to the playoffs. Almost won the playoff game with Lamar Jackson.
But they went with Lamar Jackson basically on his legs. They really didn't throw the win. They said, hey, they had the number one defense in the league. They said, hey, just make a plays here and there. We'll defend and we'll win the game. I'm talking about when you get a player like him, you have to change everything you do. If he get drafted to the Giants and they got Eli and they have a certain system and he's behind Eli, that won't fit because they have to change everything they do to fit with how he plays. He plays differently than a Russell Wilson. He plays like Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow had a whole system just for him. And that's what Kyler Murray would have because he's straight spread. I'm not sure about him under the center because he's a little smaller. So I wouldn't take him first. I think Miami Dolphins at 13 would be a great pick for him. Would be a great. Yeah, I think that'd be a great fit for him. Arizona would be a good fit. I will say that because they don't have a good line, they don't have pieces, so they could build a system around him for him to be successful.
Absolutely.
That may be.
Go ahead. You said that may be a good fit. A couple more players I want to talk about real quick before we end this topic. DK Metcalf. I never watched the guy play. Didn't know who the hell he was. But when he measured in at almost 6'4", 228, bigger than Julio Jones, 4.33, faster than Julio Jones, who ran a 4.41. What do you see from this guy? His stats don't really show that he was a playmaker in college, and Ole Miss kind of threw the ball. You know, they weren't a team that ran the ball 80 times a game. So what do you see from this guy?
Oh man, he got off now. He played well. They had some Ole Miss probably.
But I don't think he had like 500 yards his last year.
Yeah, but they had the best trio because they got a receiver that's better than him, supposed to be really going first round. They had the best trio of receivers in the. I would say almost in the. I put Jerry Jeudy and that boy Alabama had the best duo, but they had 3-4 receivers that could put points on the board.
Yes.
And I think one of the guys, Brown, Anthony, or I forgot his other first name, but he is actually supposed to be graded as a first or second round player too. He like 6'1", 225.
Okay.
So, but I think this would help him. But you also have to think about with receivers and that defensive end, so to speak. With receivers, the speed is great, but you also got to be able to. Your shoulder is good. How can you get in and out of breaks? I remember it was a player from Ohio State named David Boston.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
He was built like this. He had some success early, but he couldn't sustain because he was just so big he couldn't get in and out of his breaks.
That's absolutely true.
The defensive end, the 40 years impressive, but it's not important as much. Terrell Suggs ran a 5 flat in his 40 or 4.9 or something like that. The defensive end is all about quickness and agility. Yeah. You know, Nick Bosa, or Joey Bosa, I'm sorry, for the San Diego Chargers ran a 4.84.
I thought he ran like a 4.7, something like that.
4.84, and then he ran a 4.86 or something like that. And he could put pressure on it. So, it matters if he's just coming off just an edge rusher. But
I guess I like guys like DeMarcus Lawrence who ran a 4.6 40. Julius Peppers 4.6 40. You know, some other guys like I think what's his name, Von Miller was a 4.55, 4.58, something like that. You know, those guys, you almost sure that those guys are going to be great. Guys that run those 4.8, 4.9s, you try to look at them and see if they just football players that's going to get it done. And it's almost like you're taking more of a risk.
Yeah. So it's almost like, you kind of got to watch the tape and other measurables. Because I remember Raiders, they took Darius Hayward-Bay. He ran a 4.3 or something. And then, of course, had John Ross ran like a 4.24, and he ain't really done nothing. Yeah, so it's all about, what can they do on the football? How can that speed translate to the things you're going to ask them to do on the football field? But, he may be a good late round. You know who could use him now that we're talking about him? I think he'll be a great, great addition for somebody like Dallas Cowboys if he's there in the second round. Because I don't think he was a first rounder. He wasn't a first rounder before this. Now, he may have been catapulted up.
You're talking about Metcalf?
Yeah.
Metcalf won the first one. I thought he was projected the first round already. He wasn't?
They projected him first round now after this combine. But the dude, guy, he was actually he was all during the year, was top 10 receiver or whatever, But either way, this helps. I think I'm not sure where Dallas is going to look. They probably like Gallup or whatever, but I think they need a big body, big body receiver. And Brown,
would be good.
Yeah.
And
the hair would be nice for him.
Yeah. Let's touch on the sleeper real quick, and then I want to touch on a couple of losers before we end this topic. Devin Bush, linebacker, Michigan. You ever watch him play?
Oh, yes.
5'11", too. Man, that guy can really play. Had Michigan top 5 defense in the league.
I followed him because he's from Miami. When Al Golden was the coach, he was a 3-star safety.
Yeah.
That's why he's so fast. In high school, he played safety. He's a 3-star. He committed to Miami early, but Al Golden always had all these commitments. But ended up going to Michigan. Michigan told him from jump, hey, we're going to move you in the linebacker. And he always could run. And I think he's a player. He's one of those Miami guys. I'm big on guys that's from Miami because there's so many of them that we don't know. But he's one of those guys going to have the athleticism. London Fletcher was a small middle linebacker that
I
played for the
remember him. He
Redskins.
was like 5'9".
Right.
Yeah.
And this guy's
That's what I'm gonna
bigger than
ask you. Do
him.
you think that 5'11" frame is gonna hurt Bush? Although he has the speed, do you play him at Mike, Will, or Sam? Do you play him at the strong back or the wheel backer?
He definitely a Mike. Definitely play him as
Mike.
Mike. He'd be great. He'd be great. He's gonna be on the side.
But can
He's
he
gonna be
fend
great for
off those
coverage.
guards on that second level coming at those 6'3" guards that's pulling off? Can he fend off those blockers? That's the question. Like, so that's why I was thinking maybe outside linebacker where he will get the occasional, guard pulling out or tackle, chipping on the end and working his way up to that outside linebacker. But that middle linebacker, you in that middle and you dealing with everything.
But a lot of the middle linebackers there have been some light middle linebackers. And now with the coverage aspect, most of the teams are a throwing team. There's very few teams that's going to sit here and pound you all game.
Yeah.
You got to be able to cover in space in the middle of the field. That's probably the most important thing. So I think that would benefit him a lot, and he'll be a heck of a pickup for somebody.
Okay.
So I like that sleeper there. I like that.
Okay, so one more. Let's talk about Holyfield, Evander Holyfield's son, running back. Man, just to give you my opinion on him first. I watched him play. He's not this superstar running back. He played behind Gurley and Chubb. He played behind Nick Chubb and what's the guy named Sonny Michel for a couple years. So it's understood why he didn't start as a freshman and a sophomore. And this year he showed me he could play. He's not that every down back, but the kid can play. So the fact that it's kind of disappointing he ran a 4.79. That's terrible. But at the same time, I'm not going to drop him from a projected second, third round pick to now fifth or seventh round. The kid can freaking play. Like, that's just stupid to me. Like, you could get him on the team. He's running between tackles anyway. How much speed? He still had a decent shuttle. How much speed does he need to have? So my thoughts are, I probably wouldn't pick him in the second round with that time, but he still would go at least third or fourth round. He wouldn't drop to the sixth or seventh like they're talking now. What are your thoughts on him?
So still, you get him in the fourth round. You see this a lot too with running backs. Nick Chubb didn't run the time that they want. He falls, and you could get him there. Or I looked at that tape, man. He was a monster. I like him.
Yeah.
If you could get him there in the fourth round, especially if you get him in a backup running back situation, you always need depth because injuries there. He'll definitely help you, especially depending on the type of team you have. And I think Cowboys need to be looking at a second running back as well. That would help them because they don't have no backup running back.
Absolutely. Another one too, and I know you probably didn't watch them, but I'm a fan of what's the coach name that used to be the offensive coordinator with Nick Saban a couple of years ago.
Thank you.
Kifflin, his dad was the defensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a long time. I'm a fan of Kifflin, and he had a run. I used to watch Florida Atlantic from time to time. I used to place a lot of bets on them. And he had a kid, Devin Singletary, who killed it like 2 years ago when they won their conference. And last year he still was good, but he used to look very fast on the field. Didn't run a good 40 time, ran like a 4.6. And they were expecting him to be in the low 4.4s because rumors were that he was running like 4.3s in football camps and things like that. And he was also one of the losers in the draft where he ran like a sub 4.5. Above a 4.5. I think he ran like a 4.6. His 3-cone shuttle wasn't good at all with a 7.32 shuttle, and his short shuttle was a 4.4. 5'7", 203 pounds, so he's light. He's short and he's light. When you're 5'7", you should at least come in 215, 220, so they can know you can take that pounding. Did you ever watch Devin Singletary? What are your thoughts on him? Now, he's one where I probably wouldn't draft him until the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, his nickname was Motor. He came out of Plantation, I believe, American Heritage High School in Miami.
Oh, okay.
He was
another Miami guy.
Yeah. So he's short, but man, his production.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be there. If you do your job as a scout, these players are going to be here where he don't have to be great. He could get a specific role, change the pace back, catch out the backfield. Chicago Bears drafted a guy last year, Tariq Cohen, and he became their best player from the running back position on offense because he can catch. You get him out in space. He ain't number 5'8", maybe 5'7", 5'8", 195.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's lighter than this guy. So, I mean, if you can find a player like this, he can do wonders for your offense because of the role that you will put him in and the mismatches that he can create. And I think these players here are big-time players. This is how the Patriots sustain success because they find players that they may not be stars, but they find players that's going to fit a role, and they can do that role very well, and it just creates mismatches for you. Because if you watch Tom Brady, you like to say them short passes. This is all they do. They find a mismatch, they go with the mismatch. And so he's the type of player that can do that for a team.
With him playing at a small school like that, and I'm a scout, I watch Holyfield play with the best of the best. So I can kind of look at his film and say his film is legit. He played against schools where that's as close to the NFL as you're going to get without being in the NFL, even with some of these CFL leagues and stuff. So with Holyfield, I can look at his film and trust his film. With Singletary, I don't know if I could really do that with his film, seeing that he played against lesser competition.
So what you have to do is you have to translate it. You have to translate. Because a lot of times what happens is you see a lot of players, man, so many players that you see playing, they come from these smaller schools. They come from an Akron. Where did Julian Edelman, Kent State? They come from these smaller schools, but they fit and they translate in the system because everybody has a system. So you just want to insert him into a system in a role. Look at Darren Sproles. If this player right here, this what this guy
4-3 though. That's a 4-3 guy you're talking about, not a 4-6.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
I get you, but I'm looking at the field, okay? Yeah. And this guy can run. This guy can run. If I get him in a situation where I can get a team, put him, spread him out. If he can run routes and catch, he will be dynamic. I saw the Washington Redskins with Thompson one year, not this past year, but the year before. Thompson was so valuable. Yeah. And he was even giving them yards on the ground, too, on those inside zone reads. So if you get you a player that can fit a role like this, because he can also probably play special teams, a punt return, kick return, third down back, get you a run here and there, shifty, change the pace. Think about this. You got Ezekiel Elliott that's a different type of runner. Then he comes in, and your defense has to kind of change. He would be a great blend for a team that has a role for him. So, and then two players that's in the NFL, they go to SEC, the running back, a lot of the running backs are so worn down that they, when they get to the NFL, they're just not as good. They're just worn down.
Yeah, exactly. Colleges always do that. Well, I think we covered that pretty good. I'm sure we educated our listeners, and they are a little smarter on the draft than they were when we started this conversation. Thanks, man. You had some good details on that, and it's crazy because you've been watching most of these kids since high school because you're real big on looking at them since high school. So you watch the development versus somebody like me who don't really look at them until they actually do something in college, and make a name for themselves in college. So that's a good perspective because for you to know where these guys come from and you to know how they develop, that would make you a better person to listen to on this and say, hey, I've been watching this guy since high school and his development, he's ready for the next level if you watch the film. So
Yeah,
I agree with
most
that.
Definitely.
So thanks for joining me today, Liam. Thanks, Neely. Neely had to jump off a little early. He had something to do, but he was able to give his input on this during this episode. This was the 5th episode of PvR Sports and Culture. We want to continue to deliver you guys good information on sports as well as how it affects our culture. We want to continue to educate our listeners and not give baseless opinions. With that said, thanks, Liam. Appreciate you giving your providing us and gracing us with your educated opinions, as I like to call it. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Thank you for listening to the PvR Sports Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch new episodes and PvR clips. Like our Facebook page and share with your friends if you enjoyed this podcast. As we say in the South, catch you later.